everyone. Welcome to the first session of the property discussion this morning, 10 o'clock. Please join in. And the purpose of today's meeting will really just be really about a discussion, open discussion, talking about property in general, as well as the Spire precinct. And we encourage you to please just put forward your comments. If there's anything that you need to chat about, anything on your mind, if there's something that you particularly want to ask in terms of anything that's technical, I'll try my best to answer. So please feel free. It's an open discussion. I think just to start off, obviously we're in the lockdown stage starting today. Devmco as a group fully endorsed the decision that's been made. We'll support it, and I think in the interest of our country, it's a very, very important discussion and something we should all take seriously. So we just want to open the floor really, and if you can start putting forward your comments or discussions or questions, we'll just see how this morphs. What we try and do is get through as many questions as we can, and judging on today, we'll carry this forward and introduce another date. As it stands now, we're going to do another one next week, Friday. Same time, obviously same place. So the format today will really just be a very quick overview from myself about the group, and also about what we're doing and what we have done and what we're planning on doing, and then I think we'll move forward from there, and then go into the questions and answers. So Devmco as a group was founded by myself. We've got a very unique setup in that Devmco is a developing manager, which starts off primarily obviously conceptualizing property, trying to be as closely in touch with the market as possible. We then obviously with our architects create a scheme, and then effectively launch it to the public as per normal. A normal developer would do all that. We then build the products, which we've got our sort of tacit link with Construction ID, who are renowned in our area as probably one of the best residential developers or builders. After that, we don't just hand over the keys to the clients and move on. We've got a facilities management company. We've got which run it. We employ all the senior staff. They're all trained to make sure that the assets that our clients have bought continue to grow in value. Our property is maintained very well. Common areas are looked after. And then as we go, things like, as an example, like Uber lounges and all that, are added, and we stay intrinsically involved and linked to a development once it's completed. We really believe that long-term management of property is as important as a good product that gets developed initially. So of the value in our offering is not just a turnkey hand over the key and then move on, which is very important. In our entity, we've got about 1,000 square meters of we call it the engine room, which is based at the main entrance of Spire. We've got about 100 highly trained consultants there, which vary from architects, engineers, structural, civil engineers, mechanical engineers, wet services, fire engineers, then a full project management team, development management team, and commercial QS team. So it's really I believe the only sort of engine room that exists like that in South Africa, certainly in KZN, where we can brainstorm things quickly and solve problems. There's no sort of links in the chain. It's really one big engine. So it's a really, really cool, swift, mobile, large vehicle that has proven to be quite successful. So we've moved on from Ocean Dune, which was 260 apartments. To give you an idea of market reception, I think we've got 2 left. Then we went on to Pebble Beach and have completed that about a year and a half ago. Also 160 apartments, and I think we've got 4 or 5 left there. Our latest development is Gold Coast in the Spire area, which we've currently got about 40 homes under construction at the moment, with another 30 or 40 planned to start imminently. So I think, if you want to get a little bit more information, you can go onto the Devmco websites or post some requests, and we'll send you some information. But there's a lot of really cool videos, interactive modules, things that are really easy to navigate and get some sort of more details on the various projects. The other project that we're involved in is the Arch project, which is on the ridge, due for completion July, August, maybe September now. But that's going very nicely. One of the few mega projects in Durban that's flying along, and is obviously an iconic building. So I'm just going to jump into some of these some questions. So the first one is, hi Charles, as a young first-time home buyer, do you think that property is still a wise investment? So, I mean, that's obviously the big crux with this current situation is, first-time buyers and let's call it mature buyers that have got a bit of disposable cash. Where do they put their funds? And the reality is, I think that property is good located property is always a good, safe asset. Theoretically, if we look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first need is shelter, which is obviously in our modern day and age is property. So even in these times now where, we've got stock market spinning, we've got retail is really under pressure. But, the Forex markets all over the place. We've got the cryptocurrency markets all over the place. However, property as a whole is consistent, and we believe it's got one, capital growth, and two, it's got a really good short-term rental return. So when you add the two together, plus the fact that you can gear, and by that, just to break that down, means you can actually call it buy a 2.5 million rand property with a 10% deposit and gear the balance from the banks. Property is one of the very few investments that you can gear. You can't gear shares or Bitcoin or any of that stuff. So it allows entrance on a 2.5 million rand asset for say 250,000. And we look towards capital returns of typically about 8% per year, maybe a little bit higher off plan for the first year or two. And then on top of that, sort of between a 5 and 7% return on your investment. So, when you link the two together, you're getting, call it 15 or 14% return on the entire asset, which is a 2.5 million rand asset. And when you extrapolate that back onto the actual capital amount or equity amount that a buyer puts in, it's a really, really healthy number, sort of in the region of 70 to 80% return year on year. So, I think I do think it is a good, still a very good, wise investment. I would just put a caveat that it's all about location. So when I say location, it's obviously the macro location where it is. Typically seaside properties have always held their prices and done very well. But more importantly, internally it's the micro. So it's looking at things like the facilities around that. So it's the security, the service offering, the road infrastructure, the fiber infrastructure, power, water, backup. So generators, water harvesting. Those are things that all over the next 5 to 10 years I think are going to be a non-negotiable, and that's what we pride ourselves on, as looking forward 5-10 years when we develop a product. So products that we've developed over the last 5 years, we want them to still be, let's call it, up to speed in 5-10 years time. Things, electronic car chargers, all those type of things are things that we plan into our developments upfront. So, in a long answer to a short question, but yes, I do think it is a good investment. So I've got another one here. If you had to invest into property right now, where would you invest? And that's also a good question. I've sort of answered it a little bit there. It was the investment for me, and my simple sort of way I rationalize the answer to this is where would I invest? What would I do with spare money, or even if it was my only bit of savings or investment? I typically like to invest in very good locations, and depending on where you are on the ladder of capital, I would say the Spire area is new. It's an up and coming area. There's been a migration north. That's why we're choosing to develop this area. It's wedged between Umhlanga, which is effectively the new CBD, the new airport, which is growing rapidly, and then it sits directly in that triangle. And then obviously you've got Canubia on the inland side. Coupled with that, you've got really good private installed service infrastructure, and on top of that, sea views with coastal forests running down. So you've got, you don't have the concern of developments popping up in front of you, and you've paid a premium for sea views, and then these sea views get taken away, as has been seen in Umhlanga and those type of areas. So we believe location is the key area to invest in, and that's why we heavily back Spire. So that's my take on that. Apologies, I'm just going to have to clear some dogs out here. So the next question is, how is the lockdown affecting the Devmco group? Are you still working as normal? We are. I think normal is a big word. I think the big issue is that the luxury is that we still are, we linked, and as I said, the engine room is all linked and share information on servers. We would do work a lot, obviously, from our computers and laptops, so we can tie and still design online together. We can still coordinate information. So we are basically are carrying on. Obviously, trying to make use of technologies like Skype and Zoom. And Team and all the rest of TeamViewer and TeamShare. So we are coordinating probably 3 to 4 meetings a day, and I'm going to run the process. It gives us time to reflect on what we're doing. We can really optimize design and get ready. So when the barriers are unblocked, we can get into the implementation quickly. Let's have another one. Let's talk about the banks. How they're going to navigate 2020. Well, that's a toughie. So Cliff, the banks it's a very sort of rocky time at the moment. I think the banks per se are going to have some, and we've seen it already, these amnesty or holidays in terms of bond payments, depending on what bank we talk about. But I think the banks, have shown their hands that they are taking this seriously, and they are going to be, looking after clients. I think that a lot of the banks are doing it on a needs must. It's not just an open book, but I do think they are going to be assisting. Obviously the interest rates have just dropped now recently, and it looks like there probably will be another interest rate cut, which is really good for property at this time. I think the ability to fix the interest rate now for a 5-year period, I think it's about 9.3%. So it's reflective of the fact that we aren't going to see big interest rate hikes. The economy is under pressure, huge pressure at the moment, and it's we're only on day one. So I think the banks are going to come to the party. I think they will have to come to the party. Should I still invest, or is it wise in this time of lockdown and crisis? So look, I think that's a very interesting question as well from Darren. I do think that time to invest. A lot of guys always say that the wealthy always make money in times of crisis. So to me, if the price is right and the product is good, we know the demand for key areas is there. We talked about gearing and optimizing, exponential growth on your capital. I don't believe there is another offering. I don't believe that there is something, the old saying, the safe as a house, so I don't believe that there is other options as safe. I just think that the buyer out there needs to be really, really clever, do his due diligence, and really be sure of where they're buying. We obviously endorse the Spire node, but there are other opportunities out there at cheaper prices. And often, an entry-level cheaper product doesn't give you the returns. Although it may be easier to acquire, it may not be the right decision. So I would say, yes, it is still a very good time to invest in property. I don't believe there are a whole lot of other investment opportunities at the moment. So I think that we will see a little bit of a spike in property acquisition, especially in good areas and at affordable, let's say, good value for money prices. So we're committed to continuing that road. And what we like to do is always leave something on the table for the buyer. So it's got to be a win-win from both sides. So yeah, let's have a look at the next one. What are your feelings on property market in the KZN's North Coast? Are we going to see growth over the next couple of years? I just see the comment below that from Bruce Wilson saying KZN is ready to launch. So he sort of answered by the question. I firmly believe the North Coast. We look at the prices on the seaboard in Cape Town. We see prices running up well in excess of 100,000 a square. We've got fantastic sea frontage. We've got a beautiful forest reserve running onto beaches that can be used. They don't just look pretty, they can be used. You can swim in them, the water's warm. We've got access to an international airport. We've got access to a thriving city as in Umhlanga. We've got the ports. We've got a huge amount of capital that's being deployed into the Aerotropolis zone. Kanubi is an up-and-coming node. So I think as Durban as a whole, I think we are, I would say at least a decade behind Cape Town and Joburg in terms of growth and where we are. And I think that the platform is certainly set for the North Coast. I can't see development thriving anywhere else as much as sort of the border between Umhlanga and the end of Blita. So I think that certainly is my call on it. That, I believe it is going to continue to grow. So I've got another one here. We are looking at purchasing property. How delayed will construction be at the moment of the lockdown? Should we still purchase now or hold off? So I mean, one of the big things about buying off plan, as an example, is once you put your deposits down, you've got that 2-year period, or maybe even up to 2.5, 3 years, depending on how big the project is, where you're getting that capital growth, as I said, is sort of that 8% per annum, without actually deploying the main bond. So let's go back to the 2.5 million rand scenario. You're putting down your 250,000 into a trust account. It's getting interest on it of probably about 6%. During that period of construction, the prices still run. So it's not like you've paid your price, but the property market still moves on and obviously escalates. So I think if there is a month delay, I don't believe it will affect a buyer adversely at all. It actually affects the developer more, because our interest costs and run obviously start eating into profit margin. So from a buyer's point of view, I think it's a great opportunity to buy. You really get another sort of, let's call it a month of free carry, which is for me, I've always bought off plan. I've been doing it for the last 20 odd years, and if there's a delay, I don't really have an issue, as long as it's not a delay of say 2 or 3 years. This is, I think we're going to be talking about a month or weeks. So yes, there is. I believe it is still a very good time to purchase. What advice would you give first-time home buyers right now? So first-time home buyers, often, a lot of my discussions with clients are a lot of the tough decisions are with first-time home buyers. It's a big step. It's a big risk. But my advice is get on the ladder as quickly as possible. The longer you wait and are trying to save and get a little bit more money, that 8% on going back to the 2.5 million rand property, 8% per year represents a growth in that capital asset of 200,000 rand a year. So you really are every year you wait, you're 200,000 rand further away from acquiring the asset that you want. So it's really, you've got to dive in. Obviously, it's got to be affordable. You're going to have to probably make some adjustments on your lifestyle in other areas to afford it. But long term, the idea of paying rent forever, it's not feasible. So I really believe that you've got to get in as quickly as you can, but be responsible. Make sure it's affordable. You don't want to find yourself in trouble. So that's my advice to the first-time buyer. Why did you guys decide to develop your first residential estate in Spire Coastal Precinct? So, it wasn't our first residential estate. Actually, it was probably our fourth or fifth one that we'd done. But we launched into Spire just because of all the facilities and amenities, and obviously primarily location. I think the blend of having sea frontage with that coastal forest and proximity to everything. A lot of people have invested up in Belita over the last 10 years, which has grown, exponentially. But the Belita option was because there was nothing else. It really was Umhlanga, and then it went to Zimbali northwards. And then Zimbali obviously was a high price point, which only allowed the select few to enter. And then you had the advent of the St. Beatty Estates and Brettonwood and Dunkirk, and now we're seeing a whole lot more running out as well. But with Sabaya coming in, and we are sort of, I think we're 4.5 kilometers from Umhlanga. You've almost got this amazing new sort of Santon type node that's going to be developing. And the guys that get in early, i.e. now and over the next 12 months, are going to see massive capital growth. It's a stable area. It's got amazing amenities. We've got big plans to open up retail facilities and some commercial areas, not large commercial like the Umhlanga precinct, more boutique commercial. And we'll see more sporting facilities coming in. There's some really good schools. There's another developer that's putting on a massive university in the area. So you're going to really see this node over the next 5 years absolutely boom. And once again, location. It is just the perfect location between Umhlanga and the airport, 5Ks either way. I mean, it's amazing with good M4 access and N2 access, and then obviously beach access and forest access. So it ticks almost every box. What is your vision for the Spire precinct in the years to come? So my vision is to keep it, we want to make sure that we get one chance to make this thing absolutely, world class. We want a safe environment. We want to have sustainable energy solutions, sustainable water solutions. We want to bring back the old days, the 80s, where we've got roads where our kids can ride their bicycles and go down to the shops. And so we really are putting a lot of emphasis on safety, security. We're putting a lot of emphasis on not only obviously selling and developing our developments, but we're putting a lot of emphasis on managing and maintaining them. We want it to be pristine. We want it to be something that globally is seen as an amazing development, not just in Durban or South Africa. We want to keep it quite honest. We like as developers to be open. We're open to every single member of the public. Anyone wants to buy or talk to us. We like to interact with the market. We like to understand what the demands are and develop around that. So the feedback we've had is for just nice, safe, easy living, community-based living. So when I say that, it means being able to walk your dog down to the park, being able to walk down to the beach or get a shuttle down to the beach, being able to go to a restaurant or a bar, or sit outside in an open air park, and your kids can watch like a movie on a big screen whilst parents are finishing off their coffees or whatever it is on a night. I think that the whole community sort of connection that we had back in the old days has sort of been lost a bit, and I think the modern day society wants convenience and community and lifestyle, and that's what we want to provide. but to a very high end level. Hi Charles, how do you think the situation with THD will affect the development of the Spire precinct? Yeah, so that's a good question. You know, Tonga have had their fair share of trouble. We interact with them on a weekly basis. We have myself and the MD are having meetings, and yeah, they're very committed to the Spire precinct. Spire precinct per se is probably their most valuable asset in terms of location and the value of the land. So they're very committed to Spire. Obviously, the pot of cash is not exhaustive, so they've got to decide where they're going to spend the money to get the utmost value. And I think Spire basically is top of the list. So yeah, we've had many engagements over the last sort of 3-4 months, and planning the way forward together as a team, us as developers and even them as developers, and we actually are making some really good inroads. A lot of the promises that they had made in terms of infrastructure, sewage, water, roads, and they are fulfilling, and an endeavour to do so, continually. So also they've been really good in terms of being open and receptive. So we're working closely with them. So facilities are available at Spire Coastal Precinct. So we currently in all our sort of developments, we've got an array of various sporting parks and jungle gyms and swimming pools and super tubes. Gold Coast, which is our latest one, has got squash courts, saunas, floodlit tennis courts, lap pools. It's got even high altitude chambers, dance studios, aerobic studios, coffee shops. That's the first phase, and then the second phase will be another clubhouse, which will be more business and social orientated, which will have business centers, conference areas, whiskey and wine rooms, cigar lounges. It's going to have access down to fishing dams, lots of restaurants, open cinema parks, more kiddies facilities, pools and trampolines and all those type of things. Once again, going back to the social side, is to just allow our communities to interact in a safe and just relaxed environment, and that's what we're encouraging. I think one of the next facilities we're going to be looking at is a preschool. Also, lifestyle-wise, it's a big demand, and our market has been telling us that it's two working parents. It's the flexibility of being able to drop a kid off at a really decent preschool and pick them up in the afternoon, but right on your doorstep in a safe environment. Other facilities that we've done currently in our retail, we're actually just opening up a little nail bar. Also a big issue, a big question from some of the lady buyers, and a little hair salon as well. We've got a gym that's opened. We've got another weight section that's opened in Gold Coast, like a CrossFit gym in Spire. There's also restaurants, another restaurant there, another coffee shop. Those are the as and when our buyers are talking to us saying this is what we need, we address those issues. A third word of a school in Spire. Will this proceed? So what's the status of the plans? So the school is an Abitec school. From discussions and plans that I've seen, it looks like a Crawford type school. It's from grade R all the way up to grade 12. I believe it is on track. Opening with the first portion will be the junior and senior section of the school, and then going into high school the year after. I believe that they're due to start in March, which is obviously now. It might be pushed out to next year March. I'm not sure of those dates. However, as you obviously can understand, it's going to be completed by the end of the year for opening in Jan. So, this sort of impasse could delay that to next year start. Well, the slowdown on the market. What are you doing about increasing exposure to developments in Spire? Any further non-residential development plan to attract buyers and long-term residents? Yeah, so that's a question, Byron. The market is actually booming in Spire at the moment. So we understand that the apartment market is probably quite saturated. So as you can have seen, Gold Coast is more townhouses. There's a little townhouse estate, pet friendly, another market demand, and then freestanding plots. But going forward, we will be looking at smaller homes and more affordable, smaller homes, freestanding homes in secure estates. It's something that we believe the market's also still desperate for. Apartments, are quite saturated. However, I think over time, and as Spire, the brand of Spire grows, the demand will continue to pick up. Non-residential developments, yes, we are looking at a shopping centre currently that we are designing at the moment. Over the next 3 weeks, we'll probably button that design down, and that will be like a probably a 10,000 square meter facility to start. Have the likes of your Spar, Checkers, Pick and Pay, and Woolworths. It's probably 2 of those 4, and then other things like Dis-Chem and your Virgin Actives, and all those other line shops that link that those facilities will then flow in. So definitely that is a demand that we've picked up. Obviously, Spire, as it grows and the population grows, there's a demand for that. Currently, Mshloti doesn't have any facilities like that either. So it's something that we're putting a lot of effort into at the moment and getting that developed. Occupancy rates in the Spire precinct, Evan. So at the moment, I would say we probably, on Ocean Dune, we're probably 90%, I would think, occupied. And Pebble Beach is probably 5 or so percent behind that. Quite full. Obviously, the M4 closure hasn't really seen those numbers, really rise over the last 4 or 5 months. But I believe that it's very close to being completed. Maybe there's a delay now, but they were targeting end of April, so probably be end of May. So once that opens, we believe we're going to see the tenancies and fill up the last 10 or 15% of those units. To cause us a good initiative, thank you, Brandon. The other areas you have identified for the development as a group that we as potential buyers should look out for. I think Brandon, I think we're always looking forward 5-10 years. There is going to be Park is a really nice little development that sits inside Gold Coast. We actually started building it before launching anything, so it's something to go online and have a really close look at. A really nice little 2, 3, and 4 bedroom duplex scheme, which is pet friendly in Gold Coast with all the facilities and quite affordable. So I would definitely have a look at that. So that's Park, PARC. You can see that on the Gold Coast website. It's a great little development, but going after that, so towards the end of this year, early next year, we will be launching some quite a large precinct, which keep your eyes out. The marketing and all the literature will start going out probably towards the end of the year. That's quite an exciting one that we're backing quite heavily. Brad, what is the vision for the communities you're developing? So, that's a great one. The communities we want them to be engaging. We want them to be able to do common facilities. So if you look at all our developments, we always have common braai areas and common swimming areas and common play fields, and it actually really is working when you walk into Ocean Dune, which was the first, and you see all the kids playing on the jungle gyms together and running around the parks, and the adults are sitting in the pool areas or having a braai. A lot of the guys will have a braai and then we'll sit on the common areas that we've provided, tables and chairs and whatever. And it's just it's so lovely to see. The Pebble Beach roof's another example of that. The weekends there's always a little bit of a party going on up there. Not too noisy, but it's just a really good environment, and the kids are in the pool below, going down the super tubes, and it's just creating this sort of a community that's, I think it's, as I spoke about in the beginning, it's just creating a community culture which currently doesn't exist, I think mainly because of our security concerns. So we want to keep developing that community that can engage and optimize and let the kids, actually be able to run around with other kids. And then that to me is a priority. So future developments in the pipeline at Spire. There's a couple of good ones coming. We don't really want to say anything about it yet, but there's something really big coming towards the end of the year. It's something that we believe the market will respond really well to. It's a blend of lower, middle, and middle upper. It's that price point that we see the markets really in demand for, and also some freestanding retirement stock, which doesn't exist at the moment, and a massive demand for that. So that's something that we're going to be pushing out towards the back end of this year. But we've been working on that for over a year and developing a really amazing scheme that we'll be once again very proud of. So this is TAM. When you compare the rates per square of your current and future developments to the other seaside locations south and north of the Spire precinct, how do you feel they compare? Okay, very good question. A lot of people, when they're buying, they look at rate per square, which is important. It's also important to look at what is the square meters you're being sold. So, for instance, there's no point buying a 40 square meter unit with a 40 square meter balcony and being sold an 80 square meter product. It's distorting the numbers. So we like to keep roughly about a 15 to 20% external to internal ratio. So 80% internal, 20% external. That's roughly the balance, for balconies and whatever. So we keep that quite, and that's sort of our rule of thumb. But in saying that, so Umhlanga, the same ratios. Umhlanga ranges between 40 and 50,000 a square foot. You've got some nice sea frontage. We are currently sitting in the region of about 28 to 33,000 a square from the developer, and we have seen resales in the area, which is from our initial buyers onto other buyers up to 40,000 a square. So that's sort of the market, and we believe that those prices will continue to run, especially when you compare it to other areas with sea frontages like Cape Town, whatever, sitting well over 100,000. Okay, Bruce. With all that's happening currently, do you think taking advantage of the low interest rate and investing in property would be a good move? I 100% do. I think that I don't think that key location property will ever go down in value. I think we on the lower slopes of the curve. I believe the property rate per square, as per discussion with TAM, will continue to grow. I think to get in early, once again, caveat is make sure it's affordable. You obviously, as a first-time buyer, you're going to, or a second, third, fourth buyer, you're going to have to cut other items to make it affordable. But I think long-term, for me personally, property for me is my pension plan. I mean, I really, really believe that property, over 10 years, 12 years, we're going to have blips, you'll have drops, but property generally over 20, 30, 40 years will just continue to escalate and compound year on year. So I can't encourage enough young guys or middle income guys or even upper class wealthy guys that have invested a lot in other items to continue to invest in property and keep good stock. We refer to our property as like bespoke holding stock. It's stuff that you want to be keeping for as long as possible and only trading out of it to buy more. So yeah, I fundamentally believe that property is the best investment at the right price and in the right location. Here's one from me. Hi Charles, what phase in Spire precinct were you busy with that have been placed on hold, and how is lockdown impacting the development? So, Pauline, our only real impact is on Gold Coast. Look, we've done all the road services and all the platforms have been cut, and we were building homes. So there will be a delay on the home builds. Hopefully, it's only the 3 weeks. However, if it's not longer than 3-4 weeks, we do believe that we can, we work 6-day weeks, we can do shift work and probably catch up at least two to 3 weeks of that. So impact-wise, we can't see it having a major impact unless this, obviously, this lockdown continues for elongated period. What sort of time frame do you see Spire being a completed precinct? So yeah, Spire is a massive piece of land. To give you an idea, Umhlanga is probably in the region of a third of the size of the entire Umhlanga and the entire Spire precinct. So the Spire precinct, just for everyone that knows, starts from obviously the Ocean Dune site on the south, running all the way to the back of Umhloti down to the river mouth by Lamercy, and then inland all the way down to the river mouth on the Umhlanga Bridge crossing, and then northwards all the way to basically where the other side of the N2 from the airport. So it's a massive, massive piece of land. So I believe it'll probably take, to develop the entire amount, I would think we're looking at 20 years. What's important is obviously looking for developments as a buyer, making sure you're on the seaside of the M4. That's an important, very important location factor. I think, as I said, there's micro and macro locations. Spire as a whole is a great location, but within Spire, there's even better locations. There's obviously A, B, and C locations in Spire. And as an investor or as an advisor to an investor, I'd always say, make sure you seaside of the M4 where possible. It's A-grade land and will never go down in value. So do I see a growth in rental market / Airbnb? That's from Cliff. Cliff, I do see continued growth in the rental market. Airbnb is it's a real issue, it's a real factor, and it's actually a lot of the investors are making really good returns out of the Airbnb. In fact, I was chatting to a guy yesterday. He did his first year rental on one of our units at Pebble Beach, and they using the Airbnb and just sort of not really administrating it as well as he could. He's hitting sort of 8% returns on the property value. So the 2.5 million rand property, he's netting 200,000 a year, which is almost servicing his bond costs. Plus, he's getting the capital growth. So Airbnb is for the investors is a really, really nice opportunity or alternate to just a month-to-month rent. I know a lot of guys have used these pads as their holiday pads, and when they're not using them, they Airbnb them out, which gives them really good flexibility. So retirement, what are my thoughts on retirement? Retirement's a really interesting one. There's a massive demand. Retirement is something we're looking at closely. We've developed a nice scheme for that. We believe the market wants little gardens, and it's a very, very niche market in that the retiree that's looking at buying potentially is going to be buying their last homes. It's an emotional acquisition. A lot of the times the guys can't get bank finance due to their age. So we've got to keep the price points and the offerings really, really tight, but allow the homes to have really good access into facilities and parks and walkways and specific dog walking parks and all that. So so I think it's something we are focusing on, and Okay, guys, I'm just going to ask a couple more questions. I see I've been on for 45 minutes. So, what's the impact of the Oceans development on the Umhlanga property market? Robin, look, it's the Oceans has been basically a real issue. I don't know what the intrinsic issues are there. We actually launched Ocean Dune together with same time. I think it was about 2 weeks apart from Ocean. So I mean, Ocean Dune's been completed for 2 years now. So it is a real smite on the Umhlanga rocks area at the moment. I just hope the developers can pull it through. Obviously, there's pressure there. The impact on the Umhlanga property market in the short term is not good. Parking and taxi ranks, and it's affected the retail nodes. So, I mean, we just hope that it can actually go ahead and complete as quickly as possible. It's not good for our city to have it there standing sort of half built. So I'm sure the developers there have got a plan and are going to be aiming to get that sort of completed as quickly as possible. I think obviously the location of Umhlanga Rocks is fantastic. So ultimately, once it's completed, the property values will continue to run there. Do you think this pandemic may have catalyzed the way in which business changed to more remote operations? Could this have a negative effect on investments in office spaces? Yeah, it's an interesting one, Warren. Yeah, I think it will. I mean, for instance, I've never done a Facebook live interaction or done one or two Zoom calls, and now it's sort of the modus operandi. So I do believe it will. I do believe it will have an impact on large commercial structures. I do see, for instance, Boulder V have capitalized on exactly this, and that they've created like little boutique office environments outside or on the fringes of the estates, and they're really being used well. So it's more flexi office, common boardrooms and reception and coffee stations and that type of thing. And guys are just wanting small offices, can ride their mountain bikes to the work, do their video calls and their work. I think that is the modern day. I think we see it running in Europe and London at the moment. Where you've got your mothership office with like little pods of offices around the local villages and that. So I think that is going to be the way. I think convenience is going to dictate our lifestyle, and I think this probably will expedite that in South Africa. Good question. Okay, guys. I'm just trying to breeze through a couple here. Ants asked me a good one, Anthony, on the forest. Just that's a lot of our buyers have had a couple of queries on this. So the forests, we're in the process of actually putting those into like a national reserve. So they are protected. Currently, we are spending monthly levies on cleaning all these forests, cleaning out the alien invasives, making sure that they're safe. We've cleaned out a lot of the weeds and stuff that are strangling some of the local trees. So the forests are a paramount asset to our developments. We believe that they add massive value to not only the development as a whole on a capital basis, but really to the individuals buying. It's a lifestyle. It's a complete anomaly and just an absolute. It's an amazing asset to have these green rolling forests going out to the beach. So the forests are protected. The Spire Management Association that currently run them are absolutely vigilant and doing an impeccable job. So yeah, they'll continue to be looked after, preserved, and maintained. The development timeline for the retail I spoke of, Barham, we're looking at probably starting that during the course of next year. We are already talking to the key anchors, and it's just really a process of going through the planning, the permissions, and all the rest of it. But it's something that we feel there's a big demand for, and as quickly as we can unlock it, we'll unlock it. But I'd like to be in the ground early next year doing some of the main earthworks and bulk infrastructure for it. Okay, guys, I think we're going to just have last questions from Darren. Are you concerned about property prices? What % drop should we allow for, and when does upturn come? All right, Darren. So, a really good question. I've got a theory that I think that we'll continue to see stagnant or dropping freestanding property prices. I don't think it's going to change. I think if we look at what I was talking about earlier, this 8% escalation on capital growth, I think currently in areas like Durban North, Lucia, the old prime areas, property prices have been stagnant at best, dropping. However, on the flip side, I think that your estates, well-planned, managed estates, will continue to grow. Prices will continue to grow. I'm not sure whether it's going to be a consistent 8%, but I don't believe that these prices will drop. I think that demand, supply, the old school economics of safety, amenities, and convenience will continue to run. And I think the modern day, basically the modern day man and woman want to be inside an estate. It's about creating a price point to entry, and I think so. The answer to your question is I don't believe that if you're in an estate, which Darren, I know you are in an estate, I don't believe you're going to be seeing property prices drop. I would just be cognizant of, if you are developing in an estate, make sure you're looking around your neighbours and you're not overcapitalising. So there's no point going into a state that's got a typical house price of 6 to 8 million and building a 20 million rand house, because you're going to overcapitalise. You're going to have an issue with growth. So just keep it. Just do your homework. Make sure that you aren't overcapitalising. But I think certainly estate living, security living, you're not going to have an issue with dropping prices. Freestanding homes, I think we've seen it. It's running. It's been running for 2 years, and I think it's going to continue to diminish. So, guys, that's for me, over and out. The kids and the dogs are going nuts in the background. Apologies for any interference and the noise, but it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll send out a message. We might do another one earlier than Friday. If these have been these little chats and interactions have been helpful or assisting, please comment, like, or do whatever you have to do. Just encourage us to do another one, and look forward to seeing you guys next week. Keep safe, and God bless South Africa.